When my sister said she was dying, I thought God was punishing me for being too happy. That's the first thought I remember, the night she told me she had cancer. I can still see her face, pale, trembling, her eyes wide like she'd already seen the end. And I remember holding her hand, feeling that icy sweat between our palms. She said, "They found it late, Anna. Stage 3. I don't have much time." The room spun around me. I couldn't breathe. My only sister, my best friend since childhood, was dying. Back then, I had no reason to doubt her. No reason to imagine that the same woman I once braided hair with in our mother's kitchen would soon destroy the life I built. But before I tell you how she did it, how she faked her illness, stole my husband's heart, and left me hollow, I need you to understand who we were before the sickness. Elena was always the fragile one. Growing up, I was the steady one, the one who handled our parents' bills when Dad got sick, the one who kept the house running while Mom worked nights. Elena, on the other hand, lived in her own world, creative, emotional, endlessly seeking attention. People loved her for it. She had this way of making every story sound tragic, every heartbreak poetic. When I married Daniel, she was my maid of honor. She cried harder than I did during the vows. She even joked later, "If you ever get tired of him, send him my way." I laughed. We all did. Our families blended well. Daniel and Elena got along, maybe too well, in hindsight. She'd tease him about his bad cooking, he'd tease her about her dramatic taste in music. I saw nothing wrong. Daniel was a good man, gentle, thoughtful, dependable. He worked as an engineer, loved routine, loved me in quiet, steady ways. We had a small house, 2 bedrooms, and a garden Daniel took pride in. Every morning, I'd make coffee while he watered the basil. On weekends, we'd visit my parents or go hiking. It was a calm life, not glamorous, not exciting, but it was peaceful. Then, everything changed with one phone call. It was a rainy evening. I was cooking lentil soup when my phone rang, Elena's name flashing on the screen. Her voice was shaky, broken. "Anna, I need to see you," she said. When I arrived, she was sitting on the couch, eyes red, holding a stack of papers, medical reports, test results, scans. The words "malignant tumor" were printed in cold black letters. "I didn't want to tell you until I was sure," she said. "It's cancer, Anna. Ovarian. They're saying I need chemotherapy immediately." I dropped to my knees in front of her. I remember the smell of disinfectant, the steady ticking of her clock. I remember whispering, "No, no, no," like a prayer that wouldn't reach heaven. From that day, my life revolved around her. Daniel insisted we help. He drove her to appointments. I cooked her meals. We organized a family fundraiser to cover her bills. The whole community rallied around her, friends, neighbors, even her old high school classmates. At first, she seemed so brave. She'd post updates online, smiling with a headscarf, thanking everyone for their unconditional love. People adored her, she became almost saint-like. I thought maybe her pain had a purpose, that it was bringing us closer. Daniel would come home exhausted, sometimes emotionally raw. "It's hard seeing her like that," he'd say. "She's so young. She doesn't deserve this." I'd nod and hold him. "We'll get her through it." We became her caregivers, her protectors. Every evening, she'd call Daniel, not me, to talk. Sometimes I'd overhear their conversations, soft, emotional ones that made my stomach twist. I told myself it was just comfort. He was good with words, empathetic. But a small part of me, the quiet, wounded part, began to wonder why she needed him so much more than me. One night, I went to drop off soup at her place. Daniel had said he'd be working late. But when I got there, his car was parked outside. The lights were on. I could see their shadows moving through the window, hers, thin and fragile, his, steady beside her. I knocked softly. Elena opened the door, surprised, wearing a blanket around her shoulders. "Oh, Anna. You didn't tell me you were coming." Daniel appeared behind her, his eyes darting between us. She had a bad reaction to the meds, he said quickly. I just came to check on her. Something in his tone felt off. Forced. I smiled anyway. I see. Well, I brought soup. They both thanked me. I left after a few minutes, but that image, of them together in the dim light, stayed with me. In the following weeks, Daniel became more distant. He spent more evenings working late, more weekends helping Elena with errands. Whenever I asked, he'd sigh. You don't understand, Anna. She's scared. She trusts me. I told myself not to be selfish. She was dying, after all. But something about her treatment didn't add up. Her hair never thinned. Her skin looked radiant. She gained weight instead of losing it. And every time I asked about her doctors, she'd change the subject, or say, they're trying a new alternative therapy. I wanted to believe her. I needed to. Because if I didn't, it meant something darker, something I wasn't ready to face. Still, at night, when Daniel's side of the bed stayed cold until past midnight, I'd stare at the ceiling and feel something tightening in my chest, like the walls were whispering a truth I refused to hear. Then, one morning, I found something. Daniel had forgotten his jacket before leaving for work. When I picked it up, a folded receipt fell out, from a hotel near the hospital. 2 glasses of wine. 1 room. 1 bed. My hands went numb. I sat on the floor, holding that receipt, listening to the distant hum of the washing machine. My world began to tilt, slowly, deliberately, like God himself was forcing me to look at what I'd refused to see. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Just silence. The kind that breaks you from the inside. I didn't confront Daniel that morning. I couldn't. My hands were still trembling when he came home that evening, kissed my forehead, and asked what was for dinner. Soup, I said quietly. The same one I made for Elena last week. He froze for a moment, just long enough for me to notice. Then he smiled and said, she really liked that one. Something inside me hardened. That night, while he showered, I took the receipt from my purse and slipped it into a drawer. Not to hide it, but to keep it safe, like a wound I wasn't ready to expose yet. For the next few days, I watched him. Every detail. The way he looked at his phone before answering. The way he flinched when I mentioned her name. The faint smell of perfume on his shirt, not mine, not even the kind I'd ever wear. I told myself I was imagining things. But the human heart knows when it's being replaced. You can feel it, like a quiet betrayal in the rhythm of a familiar song. A week later, Elena called me, her voice trembling again. Anna. I think it's spreading. I felt my throat tighten. The cancer? Yes, she whispered. I'm scared. Can you come? Daniel had already grabbed his keys before I said anything. I'll drive, he said. I followed him out silently, a passenger in my own nightmare. Elena was sitting on her couch again, wrapped in a blanket, a box of tissues beside her. The curtains were drawn. She looked pale, too pale. Daniel knelt in front of her, took her hand. We'll get through this, he said softly. His voice cracked. I stood near the doorway, watching. My stomach burned. After a while, she looked at me and said, Anna, could you bring me some tea? My throat's dry. It was such a small request. But it gave me a reason to leave the room, to breathe. I went into her kitchen, filled the kettle, and leaned against the counter, trying to steady myself. That's when I saw it, a plastic bag in the trash. Inside were 2 empty bottles of foundation and a bald cap. I froze. Slowly, I reached in and pulled out the cap. It had makeup residue inside, traces of glue, beige powder. I stared at it for a long time, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it echo in my ears. No, it can't be. I looked toward the living room. She was still sitting there, head covered with a scarf, talking softly to Daniel. I wanted to scream, to rip that scarf off her head and make her tell me the truth. But I didn't. Not yet. I needed proof, real proof. The next morning, I called the hospital she claimed to be treated at. I told them I was her sister and that I needed to confirm her next appointment. The woman on the line hesitated. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we don't have any patient by that name." I felt my stomach drop. Could there be a mistake? Maybe she's using her middle name, or... No, ma'am. We've checked both. There's no record of an Elena Matthews in our oncology department. I thanked her, hung up, and sat on the floor. It was true. All of it, the chemo, the hospital stays, the suffering, a lie. And Daniel, he'd been part of it, whether he knew or not. That evening, when Daniel came home, I couldn't even look at him. He sat at the table, scrolling through his phone, humming softly. The normalcy of it all made me sick. I asked, "How's Elena?" He looked up. "Resting. She had a rough night." "Really?" I said quietly. "Because I called her hospital today." He blinked. "Why?" "To check her next chemo session," I said, my voice trembling. "They said she's not registered there. Or anywhere." The silence that followed was heavy, like the air itself stopped moving. His lips parted slightly, but no words came out. I stood up, hands shaking. "Daniel, tell me the truth. Does she even have cancer?" He looked down, rubbed his face, sighed, and that sigh was all I needed. It wasn't denial. It wasn't confusion. It was defeat. "Daniel," I whispered. "Please don't tell me you knew." He whispered, almost to himself, "I didn't, at first." My knees nearly gave out. He confessed slowly, painfully. At first, she had told him she didn't want me to worry, that she'd confided only in him because I was too fragile. She'd made him promise not to tell me the details. She cried on his shoulder, told him he was the only one who understood her. "She said you wouldn't believe her," he said quietly. "She said you'd think she was making it up." I laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "She made it up, Daniel." "She did." He looked at me then, eyes full of guilt. "I know. I found out weeks ago." My body went cold. "You knew, and you didn't tell me?" "I tried," he said. "But she said she'd tell everyone we were having an affair if I did. She said you'd never forgive me." I stared at him, unable to breathe. "Were you?" He didn't answer. Just lowered his gaze. The silence was enough. I turned away, pressing my hand over my mouth, trying to keep myself from collapsing. "She told me she was dying," I whispered. "And you went to her." He stood, reaching for me, but I stepped back. "Don't," I said. "Don't touch me." That night, I packed a small bag and went to my parents' house. I didn't tell them why, not yet. I couldn't find the words. The next morning, Elena called. "Anna," she said softly, "I heard you left Daniel's. Are you okay?" I almost laughed. Her voice sounded so calm, so innocent. I said, "You should be careful, Elena. Lies have a way of catching up." She paused. "What do you mean?" "I know," I said simply. There was a long silence, the kind that feels like someone's heart just stopped beating. Then, a nervous laugh. "I don't know what you're talking about." But I did. And soon, everyone would. That day, I decided to expose her. Not out of vengeance, but out of survival. Because if I didn't tell the truth, her lie would keep living inside me, eating away what little self-respect I had left. So I made a plan. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by my parents' window, staring at the dark outline of the maple trees outside. Every sound in the house, the creak of wood, the hum of the refrigerator, seemed too loud, too heavy. I kept replaying Daniel's voice in my head. She said she'd tell everyone we were having an affair. The way he'd looked at the floor when I asked if it was true. There are moments in life when time stops, when your past, your present, and your imagined future collapse into one sharp instant of pain. That was mine. The next morning, I called my friend Mia. She worked part-time at a local clinic, not the one Elena had pretended to go to, but she knew some of the staff there. I told her everything. She was silent for a long time before saying softly, "Anna, do you want me to check if she's registered anywhere? Just to be sure?" I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. By evening, she called back. No record of any diagnosis, treatments, or prescriptions. Nothing. It was final. The truth was complete now, ugly and undeniable. Elena had faked cancer. My sister had lied to me, to our parents, to Daniel, all for attention. Or worse, for love. The next day, I went to see her. She opened the door with her usual fragile smile, wrapped in a cardigan, scarf around her head. The moment she saw me, her expression changed, cautious, defensive. "Anna," she said. "You look tired." I stepped inside without asking. The living room was spotless, too spotless, like a staged set. No medicine bottles. No medical equipment. No trace of the illness she'd made us believe in. I looked at her, really looked. Her skin glowed. Her nails were freshly painted. Her scarf was artfully tied, not to hide anything, but to play a role. "Elena," I said softly, "take off the scarf." She froze. "What?" "Take it off." She hesitated, then gave a small laugh. "Anna, you're being weird. Take it off." The words came out louder than I intended. My voice shook the air between us. She slowly untied the knot and pulled the scarf away. Her hair, shiny, full, healthy, fell over her shoulders. I felt my knees weaken. "Why?" I whispered. "Why would you do this?" Tears filled her eyes instantly, but they were practiced, perfect. "I was lonely," she said. "You had Daniel. You had your life. Nobody noticed me anymore." "That's not an excuse," I said quietly. She stepped closer. "You don't understand, Anna. I loved him before you did. He was supposed to be mine. You took him from me." My breath caught. "What are you talking about?" She laughed, a small, broken sound. "Do you remember that summer after college? He and I went hiking. He told me I was the kind of woman he could see a future with. But then you came along. You always take everything." I shook my head slowly. "He never loved you, Elena." Her expression hardened. "Maybe not at first. But he does now." The room tilted. "You're lying," I said. "Am I?" she whispered. "He held me. He kissed me. He said he wished he'd met me first." The words sliced through me like glass. For a moment, I couldn't see. The world went white around the edges. Then something inside me, something fragile and trembling, broke. "You faked cancer," I said, my voice low. "You made our parents cry. You made me believe you were dying. And all because you wanted my husband?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I didn't plan it like that. I just wanted him to notice me. I wanted someone to care." I turned toward the door. "Then you got what you wanted." "Anna, please," she cried. "I can fix this." I stopped and looked back. "No, you can't. Some things can't be fixed, Elena. You killed them." When I got home that evening, Daniel was waiting outside. His eyes were red. "I went to see her," he said quietly. "I know," I replied. "She told me everything." I crossed my arms. "And what did you say?" "I told her it's over," he said. "I told her she needs help." "Do you love her?" He hesitated, just for a heartbeat. But it was enough. "I didn't mean for any of it to happen," he said. "I was trying to help her." Then things got confusing. I laughed bitterly. Confusing? You slept with my sister, Daniel. He looked away. I'm sorry. The simplicity of it, that single, hollow sorry, made my chest tighten. You're not just sorry, I said. You're guilty. You both are. He reached out, but I stepped back. You two destroyed something sacred, I whispered. Not just a marriage. Not just trust. You destroyed the story I thought my life was. He closed his eyes. Please, Anna. Don't throw us away. But I already had. That night, I slept on the couch. I didn't cry. I didn't even think. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling fan, listening to its slow, steady rhythm, like the ticking of a clock counting down the life I used to know. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to tell the truth, to everyone. Because silence, I realized, protects the wrong people. The next Sunday, I gathered my family at my parents' house. Mom, Dad, Daniel, and Elena, all of them. Elena tried to sit beside me. I moved to the other end of the table. Dad looked confused. Anna, what's going on? I took a deep breath. I need to tell you something. About Elena. Elena's eyes widened. Anna. No, I said firmly. You've been lying to us for months. You don't have cancer. You never did. Mom gasped. Dad's fork clattered against his plate. Daniel stared at the floor. Elena's face turned white. That's not true, she whispered. Why would you say that? I reached into my bag and pulled out a printed email from the hospital, confirming she was never treated there. I placed it on the table. Dad picked it up with trembling hands. Is this true? He asked her, his voice breaking. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Just tears, real ones this time. The room fell silent except for the faint ticking of the wall clock. I looked at her and said quietly, you lied to all of us. You used our love against us. Mom covered her mouth, sobbing. Dad turned away. Elena reached for me, whispering, please, Anna. I shook my head. No more. After that dinner, nothing was the same. Word spread quickly, not because I told everyone, but because secrets have their own way of crawling into the light. Mom couldn't hold it in. She told her sister. Her sister told her neighbor. And by the next weekend, half the town knew that Elena's cancer had been a lie. People who once sent her flowers stopped calling. Friends unfollowed her. The community page that once overflowed with prayers and heart emojis turned cold, silent. Elena disappeared from social media first. Then she stopped answering calls altogether. And Daniel? Daniel moved into the guest room. For weeks, our home was quiet, too quiet. We lived like polite strangers, exchanging only the necessary words, dinner's ready. I'll be home late. Did you feed the cat? At night, I'd hear him pacing in the next room. Sometimes, I'd hear him cry, softly, quietly, as if ashamed of the sound. Part of me wanted to hate him. Another part, the smaller, exhausted part, pitied him. Because in the end, he'd been deceived too. He'd fallen for a performance so convincing, even love itself couldn't see through it. But pity isn't forgiveness. And love, once cracked, doesn't mend easily. A month later, my mother called me in tears. Your sister came by, she said. She looks terrible, Anna. She's not eating. She says everyone hates her. I sighed. She did this to herself, Mom. I know, she said, her voice trembling. But she's still my daughter. She needs help. I hesitated. Did she ask for me? There was silence. Then, quietly, she said she doesn't deserve to. I hung up without replying. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing her face, not the liar, not the manipulator, but the little girl who used to sleep beside me during thunderstorms. The next day, I went to see her. She was living in a small rental now, half empty, curtains drawn, air thick with the smell of cigarettes. She looked older, thinner. Her eyes had lost their shine. When she opened the door, her lips trembled. "Anna." I nodded. "Can I come in?" She stepped aside. The place was a mess: takeout boxes, unopened mail, a broken photo frame on the floor. The picture inside was of us, as kids, holding our father's hands. "I guess I deserve this," she whispered. "People cross the street when they see me. My boss let me go. I can't even walk into a store without someone staring." I looked at her, my heart heavy. "You made people care, Elena. Then you made them feel stupid for it." "I know." She sank into a chair. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." "Yes, you did," I said softly. "You planned it. The diagnosis, the hospital stories, the photos with headscarves. You built it, piece by piece." Her voice cracked. "I just wanted someone to choose me for once. You've always had everything: stability, love, respect. I wanted to know what that felt like." I leaned against the wall, arms folded. "You could have asked for help, Elena. I would have given it. You didn't have to destroy us to feel loved." She looked up, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Do you hate me?" I sighed. "I want to. But I can't. Hating you would mean I still have space left in me to care that much." When I got home that night, Daniel was waiting in the kitchen. He looked different, smaller somehow, like guilt had worn him down. "I heard you went to see her," he said. "I did. Is she okay?" "She's alive," I said. "That's all I can say." He nodded slowly. "I wanted to go, but I thought it'd make things worse." "It would," I said plainly. He looked at me then, eyes pleading. "I'm sorry, Anna. I can't undo what I did, but I'll regret it for the rest of my life." I studied him, this man I'd once trusted with everything. "Do you know what the worst part is?" I asked quietly. He shook his head. "It's not that you cheated. It's that you saw me break, and you still stayed silent." He swallowed hard. "I didn't know how to stop it." "That's the thing about lies," I said. "They don't need your permission to keep growing. They just need your silence." By spring, I decided to move out. The house felt like a museum of broken promises. Every chair, every cup, every smell, all reminders of what used to be. Daniel offered to leave instead, but I refused. "No," I said. "I need a clean start, not a haunted one." So I packed my things, left the keys on the counter, and walked out. I didn't look back. A few weeks later, the story made its way into a local newspaper. "Woman fakes cancer to steal her brother-in-law." It wasn't my doing, someone from the fundraiser had leaked it. The article went viral. People were cruel, as they always are online. There were comments calling her a monster, a sociopath. Others said she needed therapy. I didn't read most of it, but I saw one photo of her walking out of a grocery store, head down, her scarf gone. For the first time, she looked real. Not the delicate performer, not the victim, just a woman facing herself. Mom begged me to talk to her again. "She's been going to therapy," she said. "She's trying." I told her I wasn't ready. And I wasn't lying. Healing doesn't come from rushing forgiveness, it comes from sitting in the silence long enough to understand what broke. So that's what I did. I went back to work, started running again, learned how to be alone without feeling lonely. I rediscovered my own rhythm, my own peace. And slowly, I began to breathe again. One evening, months later, I found a letter in my mailbox. No name, just my address. Inside was a short note in familiar handwriting. "I don't expect forgiveness. But thank you for not destroying me when you could have. I'm getting help. I hope one day you can think of me without pain. E." I folded the letter carefully, placed it in my drawer, and whispered to myself, maybe someday. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through my new apartment window. The city outside was alive, cars honking, people laughing, life moving forward. For the first time in months, I smiled. Not because everything was fixed, but because I was still standing. Time has a strange way of softening edges. Months turned into a year before I realized how far I'd come from that night when my world collapsed. The pain was still there, yes, but quieter now, like a scar that no longer hurts when touched. I'd moved into a small apartment downtown, 1 bedroom, nothing fancy, but full of light. The first few weeks felt lonely. I'd wake up and still expect to hear Daniel making coffee, or the sound of his keys jingling at the door. But slowly, I began to fill the silence with new things: music in the mornings, fresh flowers on Sundays, long walks by the river after work. Little rituals of peace. For the first time in years, I started journaling again, something I used to love but had forgotten about. At first, the pages were angry. Then they became honest. Then, finally, they became hopeful. I wrote things like, "I am learning to forgive myself for not seeing sooner. Some betrayals don't end your story, they redirect it." And one morning, I wrote, "I think I'm ready to live again." Around that time, Daniel called. His number flashed on my screen while I was cooking dinner. I almost ignored it. But curiosity, or maybe closure, made me answer. "Anna," he said softly. "I just wanted to hear your voice." "It's been a long time," I replied. "I know. I'm sorry for calling out of the blue." There was a pause, heavy but not bitter. He told me he'd moved out of town, started therapy, was living quietly. "I'm not asking for anything," he said. "I just wanted to thank you for not ruining me when you could have." I closed my eyes. "Daniel, I never wanted to ruin anyone. I just wanted the truth." He was silent for a while, then said, "You deserved better." "I know," I whispered. "We said goodbye, not like lovers, not even like friends. Just two people finally stepping out of a shared shadow." After that call, I felt something uncoil inside me, a final thread loosening. Forgiveness didn't come all at once. It came in pieces, small acts of letting go. Later that summer, I visited my parents. Mom had aged, her hair had turned more silver, her smile a little smaller. Dad moved slower but still kept his gentle humor. They didn't mention Elena right away, but I saw her photo still on the mantel, the two of us as children, arms around each other, grinning with missing teeth. After lunch, Mom took my hand. "She's better now," she said softly. "She's been clean for months, no lies, no pretending. She's still in therapy, working through everything." I nodded, unsure what to feel. "She asks about you," Mom added. "All the time." I looked out the window at the garden, the same one where we used to play hide and seek. "Maybe someday," I said quietly. Mom squeezed my hand. "That's all she hopes for." I did see Elena again, though, unexpectedly. It was a gray afternoon in autumn. I was coming out of the grocery store when I saw her across the parking lot. She looked different, smaller somehow, like guilt had humbled her. Her hair was natural again, her clothes simple. For a moment, I froze. She saw me, too. We stood there, two sisters, years of pain stretched between us, and then she lifted her hand in a small, trembling wave. I hesitated, then nodded back. No words. Just quiet acknowledgement. That was enough. Life moved on after that. I got a promotion at work, started volunteering at a local cancer support center. Ironic, I know, but it felt right. I met people who were truly fighting for their lives, who carried pain without deceit, and somehow, their courage healed something inside me that I didn't know was still broken. I realized that truth, even when it hurts, is sacred. Because lies may offer comfort, but truth offers peace. Sometimes, on quiet nights, I still think of her, of the moment she cried in that hospital blanket, the fake tears that fooled us all. But I don't feel rage anymore. I feel understanding. Because deep down, I know her lies didn't come from hatred, they came from emptiness. And emptiness, if left unhealed, becomes hunger, a hunger for love, for validation, for something that fills the void. I used to think love meant protecting people, even from their own mistakes. Now I know, real love means holding people accountable. Even when it breaks your heart. A few months later, I received a message from an unknown number. It was a photo of a chip of sky seen through a hospital window, followed by a single line. Still working on myself. Thank you for saving me by telling the truth. No name, but I knew. I stared at it for a long time, then typed back. Keep going. Then I turned off my phone, stepped outside onto the balcony, and breathed in the cool evening air. For the first time in a long while, I felt free, not of pain, but of the need to relive it. Healing, I learned, isn't about pretending it never happened. It's about making peace with the fact that it did, and choosing to live better because of it. In some strange way, Elena's betrayal taught me boundaries, Daniel's silence taught me self-respect, and my own heartbreak taught me resilience. And maybe that's what redemption really looks like, not erasing the past, but turning it into a lesson worth remembering. One night, while cleaning out my drawer, I found that letter from her again. I read it under the soft lamplight, her words shaky but sincere. Then I took out another piece of paper and wrote something beneath it. I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Then I folded both letters together and tucked them away, not as a wound, but as a chapter closed. A year later, on what would have been the anniversary of Elena's supposed diagnosis, I lit a candle. Not for her lie, but for the truth that came after. And as the flame flickered, I whispered, may we both keep choosing honesty, even when it hurts. When people hear my story, they often ask, how could your own sister do that to you? And for a long time I didn't have an answer. But now, I think I do. Some people break others just to feel whole again. Some people fake pain because it's the only way they know to be seen. And sometimes, the ones who hurt us most aren't villains, they're lost souls drowning quietly, reaching for anything that feels like love. That doesn't excuse the lies. It doesn't erase the betrayal. But it helps me understand, and understanding is a softer kind of peace. If there's one thing I learned, it's that truth has a way of surviving the wreckage. You can bury it under guilt, fear, and manipulation, but it always finds its way back to the light. And when it does, you face a choice, to stay angry, or to let go. I chose peace. Not because it was easy, but because I couldn't carry the weight anymore. And maybe, if someone out there is listening, someone who's been lied to, cheated, betrayed by someone they love, I hope you know this, you can still rebuild your life. You can still trust again. And you can forgive without ever forgetting who you are. Because forgiveness isn't a gift for them, it's freedom for you. Sometimes I still wonder, if my sister truly loved me, or if she only loved what I had. But maybe that's not the right question anymore. Maybe the real question is, what would you do if the person you trusted most betrayed you in the name of love? Would you seek revenge, or would you seek peace? Tell me in the comments. And if my story touched you, don't forget to subscribe, for more true stories that remind us, no matter how deep the betrayal, healing always begins with truth.